Welcome in, and this is it. We've arrived at number one. There's Ira, there's Corey. I'm Jeff, and we're here to talk about the number one team on the Warchant.com top 40 list, the original top 40 list, by the way. That's now been copied by everybody. We don't mind. We come up with great ideas. They get ganked. But top 40 list has served to kind of prime us for the upcoming season, and I think it's been fun, boys. I would note that, over and over again, we say this because it's true. Florida State has raised the floor of talent here considerably. And so this was a little bit of a different list in the sense that we had kind of competing rankings. Some people have a guy at 5, somebody have him at 20. You couldn't do that a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. But it's not surprising we arrive at number one with DJ Uiagalelei, the starting quarterback for Florida State. Typically speaking, for all teams, I think we would say that the number one player on a top 40 list might indeed be the quarterback. And there's how the staff ranked him. Top 40, number one. Tom, Matt had him at number 4. Ira, you had him at 1. Aslan had him at number 3. Corey had him at 1. Gene at 2. And I had him at 1. So the three of us,
and Tom,
the ones that matter,
right.
all had him at number 1. It's not a surprise the three of us would A, be hosting this video, and B, all correctly have him ranked number 1. So there we go. We win. Let's sign off, everybody.
Yeah. I think this is the first time in Warchant Top 40 history, which goes back now over a decade, that 3 different players got number 1 votes this year. So it was unique. DJ was not the unanimous pick, but like you said, he was the right choice, and we got it right.
At 6'5", 242 pounds or thereabouts, it's a guy who's big with lofty expectations, who's played a ton of football. He's appeared in 48 games, 40 starts, 30-10 in his career. He's a guy that's thrown for over 8,000 yards, 57 touchdowns. He's also rushed for 1,132 yards and 21 touchdowns. He was a semifinalist for the Davey O'Brien Award. We go on. He's played a ton of football. He was super hyped coming out of high school. He had his ups and downs at Clemson. He had a really good year last year at Oregon State, helping them to go 8-4. Now he comes to Tallahassee in Mike Norvell's offense and an up-and-coming quarterback coach in Tony Tokarz and a lot of talent around him. I'll start with you, Corey. What do we think DJ Uiagalelei is going to do from a passing standpoint this year? What's a good season for him and for Florida State to maximize his talents?
Yeah, man, I think it's just what he did last year. Really, the last 2 years. We say he had an up-and-down career at Clemson, and he did. The up came so early. It was like a freshman doing what he did on national TV against Notre Dame in a game that everybody watched, throwing for a gazillion yards. And then the dip, it was a pretty significant dip in 2021. But I think 2022 and 23, he was good. He's a good quarterback. If he could just be that guy again, that he was at 22 and 23, which we think he is. Like, I don't think those were anomalies. Those were 2 full seasons with 2 completely different offenses, and I thought he played well, pretty well. He wasn't exceptional. He wasn't unbelievable, but he was pretty good both years. If you could just get that from him, that's what you need. You need a good college quarterback, a pretty good college quarterback, and I think that's exactly what he can be. Now, I think that's exactly what he is. The question is, how good can he be? Can he take it to another level and be an All-American candidate, a Heisman Trophy candidate, an All-ACC first teamer? That's what you wonder now. But I think we know his floor is pretty darn high because he's proven it the last 2 years.
And to that end, Ira, I'll ask you, it's interesting. Florida State had a decision to make at the end of last year. Did they ride it out and decide that Brock Glenn, this will be his transitional year, we'll figure him out? Obviously, he'll make some mistakes as a first-year starter, that kind of a thing, and then maybe possibly you're going to go 8-4, something like that. Or do we have enough pieces here already that if you bring in an experienced quarterback, a talented experienced quarterback, might you repeat as conference champions, go to the college football playoff, and put it all on the line yet again? They decided the latter, and with that, DJ Uiagalelei was excited to be a Nole. He wanted to be a Nole. He was pushing to come here. Florida State decides in the end to do that. How much better, Corey just made the point, do you think he can be than he's been in his career? He's been very good. I think that's an accurate statement. Can he be an All-American this year in this offense with the weapons that he has?
It's hard to say he'd be an All-American, excuse me, but I do think it's possible he could be a contender for ACC Player of the Year. To Corey's point, again, I think people have harped so much on his first year as a starter at Clemson when he had, I think, 9 touchdowns and 10 picks. It was very disappointing, less than 60% completion percentage. his next year and last year, those 2 years combined, I think it's 42 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, something like that. Last year at Oregon State, he averaged like 8.4 yards per attempt. I mean, those are all good numbers. And if he just does that at Florida State, I think he'll be good. And I think, Mike Norvell, the decision they made at the end of last season, I'd probably kind of equate it to like if you get a raise and your standard of living changes, like you start, so you get a raise or a bonus and you start living a certain way and you think, oh, I'll go back to the way I used to live. And I think that was 2023 for Mike Norvell. Like he wasn't going back to 2022 this season. Like at the end of last year, yeah, they could have stuck with Brock Glenn. They could have seen what Luke Kromenhoek could do. But I think he enjoyed living in that nicer life with a 13-0 team. And so I think that's why they got DJ Uiagalelei. And I think he's a guy that can do that. And I think he'll play better than he has those last 2 years because I think his journey has kind of showed Mike Norvell and DJ what he's best at. Like they've figured out now what he's best at, how to use him. And I think Florida State's kind of got weapons that can really take advantage of his talents.
Don't you two guys, though, think that the biggest thing with DJ is – because my concern at the end of last season was, yeah, you could throw Brock Glenn or Luke Kromenhoek. You could throw two freshmen. But I think the floor drops of what your team can be drops significantly. So legitimately, you said 8-4. If you have bad quarterback play in 2024, you could go 5-7. You can go – I mean, this is a tough schedule. If you don't play well at quarterback or just if you don't sabotage the season at quarterback, you can go you're going to be a good team. But if you do sabotage the season, if you have a kid, and I know this is this isn't the right comparison, but obviously Brock Glenn would be better than what we saw in Louisville with 5 days to prepare for an ACC championship game against Louisville and Charlotte. But that kind of quarterback play leads to 4-8 seasons. This quarterback, you feel like the floor has been raised where that's out of that as long as he's healthy, that's out of the equation. You're not going to have a bad season. You might not have an incredible season, but that window is going to be pretty good to really good is with a quarterback like DJ, I think.
And I know you're not dogging Brock Glenn, and you don't think
at all.
You're not assuming that he'd be terrible. I would also point out, I don't even think he had 5 days to prepare for that game against Louisville. Remember, they kept waiting on Tate Rodemaker, thought until the very last day that he was going to start and then couldn't. So it looked like a guy who had no days to prepare for that start. But that said, I get your point. You're right. You certainly aren't going to have a disastrous campaign where things go off the rails because a young quarterback loses confidence. This is a guy who's played a ton. And I would go on to say, Ira, I think you make a good point. You look at the personnel they brought in around him. Clearly, they know what his skill set is. This is a guy who they're going to run some, but they're also going to set up and play action to throw the ball down the field. It's pretty evident to me, fellas, that Mike Norvell ended last year frustrated by their inability to get the ball down the field consistently and hit on big plays. Now, some of that was due to some of the injuries they had with their offensive personnel, but some of that also had to do with the fact that they simply were not fast. It was not a fast team. This team can run by you, but they have a lot of guys that have to show they can be the man. And there are a number of candidates. Who do we think at the end of the day for DJ Uiagalelei will be his top target this year, and who has to be in order for them to have the kind of season that they want? Either one of you can answer that.
I think Malik Benson is the guy that's they think, and we all think is going to be the probable number one receiver. And you've got to and that's a guy that can run, man. He's much faster than the two guys they had last year were really good. They weren't speed merchants by any stretch of the imagination. Malik Benson is. So I think he's the number one. I also think Ja'Kai is going to be another big-time player in this offense or have a chance to be. And then Ira, I don't know who you think the number 2 receiver will be or the number 3 receiver will be. I do think somebody like Jaylen Brown is somebody they're going to use in certain instances just because of that elite speed that he has.
Yeah, I hope Jaylen Brown has a big year. I think he's definitely got the talent. He's smooth. He's a really good route runner. He just hasn't played a lot of college football. He basically redshirted last year at LSU, and I think he's a guy that he's going to be a star at Florida State. We just don't know if it's going to be this season. Kentron Portier is kind of the wild card because he had the great spring in 2023, then was hurt last year. Sounds like he was kind of banged up in the spring. He was pretty quiet in the spring. He had the nice couple plays against Georgia in the Orange Bowl. So he's a guy that could maybe, if he emerges as that guy, I think that would be huge. And then you got Hakeem Williams and, like you said, Ja'Kai Douglas. So they have some options. But again, going back to Jeff talking about how they're going to attack defenses with the running game, with DJ in short yardage, with the deep ball. You don't have to be incredible receivers. If you're running behind the secondary, you don't have to win a lot of 50-50 balls. So I just think they're going to make a lot of big plays, and I think all those guys have a chance to do that.
And don't you guys think the element that they missed last year in the offense? Well, Jeff just touched on it. The player they missed oddly, and they went 13-0, so they didn't miss him too bad. But was somebody like a Pokey Wilson? Like Pokey Wilson was a deep threat that once every couple of games would get behind a defense for a huge play. They didn't really have that element at all last year because Keon and Johnny weren't. They were jumping over guys, but they weren't running by them. And I think this year you'll have that element as well.
And sorry to interrupt you, Jeff, but in your interview the other day with Lawrence Toafili, he made the comment about DJ's strong arm. And, Jordan could throw the ball down the field, but it was a different way. Like DJ can flick his wrist and the ball is 60 yards down the field. Jordan kind of had to load up and really, kind of get a lot of arc on it. And it took some time to get there. DJ's a different guy, man. And there's less recovery time for defensive backs if you have a guy like that.
So I think as we put a ribbon on this with DJ playing within the offense, it sounds like all three of us believe that it's going to be a different looking offense, maybe even more efficient. I've thrown out there before. It could be more efficient if they're able to run the ball. And if they're able to run the ball, he could have a massive year because that will set up the balls down the field. They brought in the requisite speed, as we were just describing. A different looking offense means closer games, I think, this year, guys. I think we're talking about something that has to be won out over the course of all four quarters as you wear people down. I don't think it's going to be electrifying. You may get those big plays down the field, but I think you're going to have to wear people down and be very physical. And if he's efficient, if he's proficient, then DJ could have a massive season. Do we think that's a fair assessment of what this offense is going to be and how it differs from last year with DJ at the helm?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a little more run heavy. I think we all assume that. And I think, they're going to have more big plays. They have big plays last year, but it was basically one-on-one jump balls to a couple really good receivers. This is going to be like, you could have a couple 80-yard passes on post plays, a couple 50-yard plays every game, just because that's what DJ gives you. So I don't know if it will be more efficient, but it definitely seems like it'll be a more big play offense. Because the only big plays they had last year, it felt like, were Trey Benson runs. DJ's arm changes the dynamic of everything.
And one of the biggest things that Jordan Travis brought Florida State, of all the things he brought Florida State, and there were many, one of the biggest ones was the fact that he just never turned the ball over.
Yes.
And so that's going to be key. DJ has not been a big turnover guy in the last 2 years, 7 interceptions each year with more than 20 touchdowns. And that'll work. That's fine. You don't have to be Jordan's 27-2 or whatever ratio, but that's got to be the key as well. Him getting comfortable in this offense and not feeling like he has to do too much. Because I do think there's a little bit of concern of that. At Clemson, it felt early on that the pressure of that situation, being the number one quarterback, trying to live up to what he looked like, as you mentioned, Jeff, in those first few games when he first got there as a freshman, it felt like the pressure was a lot on him. It's a lot different going out to Oregon State for a year and playing over there. You want to make sure he doesn't feel that pressure when he comes back to Florida State. I don't think he will. He's a mature, smart kid, and there's a good coaching staff. But that's something I think I want to look out for a little bit.
A good run game and a strong defense would go a long way and not making him feel as if he has to win it by himself this year. So our number one player, once again, on the list, not surprising, the Warchant.com top 40 list ends with DJ Uiagalelei as the number one player on our list. Don't forget to like and subscribe, everybody. Right now, are we still doing $1? It's $1 for 2 months free, something like that, or basically free?
It is, man. It is. They'll make it happen.
Last time I did one of these videos the other day, I swore that we should charge $150 a month. I mean, what are we doing?
Fair.
Giving it away for
right.
$1.
Right.
That's Corey Clark. That's Ira Schoffel. I'm Jeff Cameron. Until next time, go Noles. Be good, everybody.